Senator Tim Scott is proud to inform you that he hates you. Yes, you, the working person struggling to make ends meet. He can't stand you. And he wants to make it easier for big banks to take even more of your money. Here's how. As the newly elected chair of the Senate Committee on Banking, Housing, and Urban Affairs, Scott is responsible for setting the committee's agenda, which oversees key federal banking and financial regulatory agencies such as the Federal Deposit Insurance Corporation, the Securities and Exchange Commission, and the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau. Scott has promised to support cutting CFPB funding to pay for tax cuts for the wealthy, slash regulations for credit lending, and help cryptocurrencies and fintech platforms become more entrenched within the traditional banking systems. On February 13th, Scott and Representative French Hill introduced a resolution that would roll back a recent CFPB rule, placing a $5 cap on what most banks can charge customers when they overdraft their accounts. Prior to the new rule, such overdraft fees earned banks billions of dollars each year, a practice Scott passionately defended by calling the CFPB's overdraft reform efforts a smear campaign against big banks. Now, big banks each year take tens, if not hundreds of millions of dollars from their customers through overdraft fees. In 2019, banks collectively raked in nearly $12 billion. After Biden took office and made taking on junk fees like this a priority through the CFPB, that revenue was nearly cut in half, with banks taking under $6 billion in 2023. But now Scott wants to remove the cap and get those numbers back up. Why? Because he works for the banks, not his constituents. Senator Tim Scott has received more than $5.3 million in campaign donations from banking, securities, and investment interests since 2009. His largest individual donors include financial executives who have given him nearly $1 million to fund his campaign efforts, and he's taken thousands from donors affiliated with major banks targeted by financial regulators for excessive overdraft fees, according to federal data reviewed by the Lever. The Biden administration's CFPB routinely targeted legitimate payment incentives and practices in pursuit of political headlines over sound policies. The overdraft rule was yet another example. Many consumers rely on overdraft services to make ends meet, and limiting this practice will push Americans to riskier financial products, Tim Scott said. And he continued saying, "I'm proud to lead the effort to overturn this misguided rule and protect Americans' access to important financial services." And just to give you some perspective on how lucrative overdraft fees can be for banks, the CFPB estimates the banks have taken over $280 billion in revenue through overdraft fees since 2000. Now that breaks down to nearly 1,000 for every US adult. But of course, overdraft fees typically penalize people without enough money in their account. Low-income households are hit the hardest overdraft and NSF fees, while just 10% of households with over $175,000 in income were charged an overdraft fee or an NSF fee in the previous year. The share is 3 times higher at 34% among households making less than $65,000 a year. Cenk, does it surprise you that Tim Scott is doing this in service of big banks?
Of course not. All these corrupt senators work for their donors. Tim Scott is massively corrupt. So again, for MAGA, they hate the uniparty and they think establishment Republicans are screwing them. But then when you show them particular cases, they go, well, I don't know. Well, Elon wanted to cut Consumer Financial Protection Bureau and so did Trump. Maybe they're right. I mean, it's weird that the guy taking all the bribes, campaign contributions from the banks happens to agree with them. Is it weird? Or does it make all the sense in the world? So $5 million in bribes, campaign contributions, goes to Tim Scott. Wow, funny how he wants to keep the overdraft fees as high as possible. So before the regulations, they averaged between $30 and $35. Now they're down to $5. So now I want to break down 3 absurd things that Tim Scott said that Jordan read you, which I find to be hilarious. He said that he was trying to protect against, quote, a smear campaign against the big banks. I mean, how will those poor little banks protect themselves against the meanies in the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau? I mean, if you can't charge you $35 instead of $5 for a simple mistake, well, then you're running a smear campaign against those victims. Okay, he also said, as Jordan read to you, many consumers rely on overdraft services to make ends meet. Wait, how does charging them $35 for an overdraft instead of $5 help them make ends meet? He's not even trying to make sense. He's just throwing out word salads because it's indefensible, and he just thinks it doesn't matter. Elon and Trump are running cover for us. Oh yeah, they're cutting waste, fraud, and abuse. That's why we should crank up the overdraft fees back up to $35. How does that have to do with waste, fraud, and abuse? That's Jordan just read to you that the big banks took $280 billion off of us. Who's us? All the US citizens and consumers, the voters, the taxpayers. They took $280 billion from us through those fees. Now, I'm not saying they can't charge any fees. And in the old days, the reason they charge fees, in case you don't know this, is because, yeah, then they had to reverse the process and it cost them man hours and that costs money. And they're like, all right, well, we gotta make up that money. That's how it originally started. You know what happens now? It's an algorithm. It takes up no man hours. The algorithm catches it, it charges you the fee, and it's done. That's it. And they recognize that, they admit that. So they just wanna make more money from you for a simple mistake, et cetera. And then last one, he said, because he wants to, quote, protect Americans' access to important financial services. But wait, they have the overdraft protection either way, and it costs the banks almost nothing. So how are you protecting those services if you say in that case, the consumer has to pay $30 more? That doesn't protect the service, it doesn't protect the consumer, it robs the consumer. But word salad, $5 million, make sure you can charge them $35, rack up hundreds of billions of dollars to the banks instead of the average American, and that's a robbery well done.
Cenk, I think Scott is conflating not offering overdraft protection with a fee with payday loans, which is something that the banking industry likes to compare overdrafts to. Well, you know, you'll do this, you overdraft, you pay a fee. It's much cheaper than paying for a payday loan, but that's actually not really the case. It is so lucrative for banks that there was a Minnesota bank, TCF National Bank, the CEO, Bill Cooper, who was making, that bank was making so much money off of overdraft fees, he named one of his yachts Overdraft.
Oh my God. They're rubbing your face in it. Thanks for watching the Young Turks, really appreciate it. Another way to show support is through YouTube memberships. You'll get to interact with us more. There's live chat emojis, badges. You've got emojis of me, Anna, John, JR. So those are super fun. But you also get playback of our exclusive member-only shows and specials right after they air. So all of that, all you gotta do is click that join button right underneath the video. Thank you. Every time you ring the bell below, an angel gets his wings. Totally not true, but it does keep you updated on our live shows.